Welcome to Echoes After Midnight, where the woods are not empty, the dark is not safe, and you are never alone. This is A Thorn in the Flesh by Alexander Bainswool. The black panel van rolled down a deserted Mexican highway under a vast star-scattered sky, windows cracked just enough for the warm night wind to slip inside and brush across their faces. Elias Thorne kept both hands on the wheel, eyes fixed on the shimmering blacktop that stretched endlessly ahead. It had been 2 weeks since the first clash with Azazel at that rundown border motel, 2 weeks of constant movement with no further sightings or clues. Maybe Elias was hunting the ancient skinwalker. Maybe the skinwalker was still hunting him. Either way, the road kept them one step ahead for now. Sam lay in the back seat, the bright red Kong bone tucked protectively between his paws. The big German shepherd was awake and feeling better, ears half-cocked toward the open window, tail thumping once or twice against the seat whenever the wind shifted. In the passenger seat sat Dani. He hadn't known her name when he first agreed she would come with him. The wind played through her dark hair as she watched the desert roll by. Elias took quiet comfort in her presence. The old gods, ancient, indifferent powers older than any written language, chose a champion every generation to serve as their angel of death. These gods did not create heroes for glory. They selected blades to keep the scales balanced as evil grew stronger in the world. The champion protected the innocent, carved away the monsters that tipped the balance, and was cursed to drift forever without roots so that no single life could ever weigh heavier than the greater good. Elias had come to understand he was that champion now. The losses, the knife, the endless road, it had all been preparation. The old gods had deemed him fit for a companion at last. Dani felt like their quiet approval. Her full name was Sarah Daniels, but her friends, if she had ever been allowed any, called her Dani. That was the name her father had carefully written in black marker on the tag of the stuffed bear he gave her for her 5th birthday, right before the tragic car accident that took both her parents and left her the sole survivor. Fate had ruined every chance at a normal life she had ever tried to build, just like it had for Elias. They had worked together perfectly these past 2 weeks. Elias remembered the night last week a lone vampire biker had pulled into a remote gas station and tried dragging Dani into the restroom at the back of the building. She had fought like a wild thing, breaking the creature's nose with a sharp elbow and screaming loud enough to bring Elias running. He had carved the undead thing open while she watched, blood on her hands and a fierce light in her eyes. She had not been scared. She had seemed to enjoy it. 2 days ago they had set a trap and drawn out a Mexican sand wendigo into their desert campsite late at night. These wendigos were a spicier breed than the northern ones. They were hungrier, faster, their antlers sharper, and their hunger laced with the dry heat of the south. They had worked as a seamless team, Dani drawing its attention with a flare while Elias struck from the shadows. The old gods had seemed to approve of the way they moved together, carving the monster down in a storm of silver and bone-handled steel. Now they drove across Mexico trying to decide where to go next. Maybe they would shoot up the East Coast and restart the journey as a pair back toward Maine where it had all begun. Or maybe Nova Scotia. Lots of monsters there, human and otherwise. They would figure it out over steaks cooked on a campfire, they decided. A small campground appeared out of nowhere along the highway like a sign from the very gods they served. It was little more than a trailer park built around a small lake, the kind of place that might let them catch some fish to cook as well. They stopped briefly in a small Mexican town for clean clothes and lunch. While Elias paid inside the shop, a bunch of local children playing in the dusty street spotted Sam waiting patiently by the van. The kids swarmed over with bright laughter, petting the big shepherd and feeding him pieces of tortilla. Sam soaked up the attention, tail wagging, red Kong bone still proudly in his mouth. The oldest boy, maybe 16, hung back a moment and looked up at Elias with serious eyes. "Be careful, senor. Mexico can be dangerous for Americans right now. Lots of drug cartels, lots of human trafficking. They see a lone man with a nice van and a pretty woman." He shrugged. Elias laughed once, low and cold. "Good," he said. "I welcome the challenge." The boy nodded like he understood more than he should and ran off to join the others. The campground was creepy the moment they pulled in. The guy who greeted them at the booth had eyes like dull coals and a smile to match. The place was mostly empty. Only a few occupied, run-down trailers scattered among dozens of dilapidated, abandoned ones. The evening was enjoyable but oddly foggy and unseasonably cool for the desert. They set up their tent site by the lake, surrounded by a small forest of tall, scraggly bushes and death. leafless branches that looked like skeletal fingers reaching for the sky. In the distance, they could hear wolves howling through the night. They sat by the fire and talked about how fate always seemed to put a monster a week in front of Elias to carve. The chances of that being a coincidence were very small. His journey looked random, but it was not. It was mapped by the old gods who sent him drifting across North America as their very own angel of death. The fire helped chase away the chill of that truth. One of the residents of an occupied trailer, an old Mexican shaman lady, a witch, approached them through the fog. She seemed mystical, the kind who read fortunes and felt energies and spirits in the air. She sat by their fire without being invited and spoke in a low, urgent voice. The spirits had told her to warn him. Dangers lay ahead. He would have to make a choice, and his destiny was bigger than he knew. A strong foe was hunting him right now. For the world to be saved, he must kill this foe, but it would not be easy. She warned him to stay sharp, then rose and returned to her trailer. Azazel watched from a distance, hidden among the dead bushes. The ancient skinwalker was still injured from their last clash, not yet at full power, but patient. He waited for the optimal moment. As soon as the old witch stepped back inside her trailer, Azazel struck. A single clean kill, face peeled away like a mask, heart-eaten to absorb what little strength remained in her bones. The old gods had sent her to warn the carver. Azazel made sure the warning died with her. They left the campground at first light. Azazel followed on their tail. Sam seemed to know it. The big shepherd rode extra alert in the back seat, growling low at every shadow that crossed the road. They stopped briefly in another small Mexican town for a few more supplies. While there, they saw a young girl being grabbed by 3 human traffickers in a back alley. Together, Elias and Dani moved without hesitation. The bone-handled knife flashed. All 3 kidnappers died before they could drag the girl into their van. Elias decided then and there to give Dani his smaller bone-handled knife and the Glock loaded with silver-tipped hollow-point rounds just in case. She accepted both with steady hands and a look that said she understood exactly what this life meant. "I guess that makes 19, Elias said under his breath, Dani hearing but not understanding. Worth it, he thought. They decided to head north up the east coast and see where it took them. If they could not find Azazel, he would surely find them, and they would be ready. The van rolled on, windows cracked, hot air whipping across their faces. Sam was doing even better, head occasionally poking out the window again, red Kong bone between his paws. As the sun went down, they stopped at a small motel with a swimming pool out back, a country bar attached on one side, and a gas station on the other. They filled the tank, grabbed some food from the gas station, checked into a room, and hit the pool for a late-night dip. Dani looked beautiful swimming nude under the full moon, the water sliding over her skin like liquid silver. Elias did not swim. He sat beside the pool with Sam, eating quietly while wolves howled somewhere in the distance. That night Elias woke to an empty bed. Dani was gone. He grabbed the bone-handled knife and took Sam out into the hallway. The déjà vu hit him hard. A couple of people on the premises lay dead in the same surgical way, faces peeled, hearts missing. Sam growled low at every shadow. He heard Dani's voice coming from one of the other rooms. Elias kicked the door wide open. Dani was tied to a chair in the center of the room, gagged but alive. Azazel stood behind her, wearing the stolen face of the motel clerk, the skin already sagging at the edges to reveal black sinew and too many teeth. "You are going to have to choose, Carver," the skinwalker hissed, voice shifting between a dozen stolen identities. "Your new woman, or your dog. The old gods demand a sacrifice tonight. Kill one to save the other, or watch them both die." Elias remembered the Mexican witch's warning. This was a choice. This was the danger, the foe the witch said was hunting him. But while Azazel was distracted taunting him, Dani worked the knots that bound her wrist just enough to slip out a single hand. She had the Glock. She fired 3 silver-tipped hollow-point rounds straight into Azazel's chest. The ancient skinwalker howled in pain and surprise. Elias took the opening. He went hand-to-hand with the alpha, the bone-handled knife flashing. Sam, still not fully healed but furious, bit at Azazel's ankles and legs, dragging the creature off balance. They fought like the team the old gods had forged them into. Claws raked Elias's shoulder. The knife carved deep into Azazel's side. Sam clamped down on a leg and held on. Elias drove the blade up under the ribs one final time, twisting until the ancient heart gave way. Azazel collapsed, stolen faces flickering across his features one last time. As the life left him, he rasped, "You will never know peace, Carver." You are cursed by the old gods just like me. That is why monsters are drawn to you, and you to them. Elias, Sam, and Dani left Mexico in the dust, windows rolled wide open, hot air roaring through the cab. Sam rested his head on the console once more, red Kong bone between his paws. Dani sat beside Elias, the smaller bone-handled knife and the Glock now part of her own kit. Elias wondered what foe would hunt him next and what choice the witch's full prophecy had truly meant if Azazel had not been the final one. The road stretched north ahead of them, east coast, maybe all the way back to Maine, maybe Nova Scotia, maybe somewhere new. The old gods were not finished with their angel of death yet. The hunt never ended. It just got less lonely. And now it had a woman riding shotgun who understood the blade, a dog who had more than earned his place in the pack, and an ancient enemy finally carved into the dust behind them. The road waited, watching, and the old gods smiled back in the dark. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe for more echoes after midnight.